Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Indonesia, Dr. Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono, Excellencies, Ambassadors of friendly countries, Head of the President's Delivery Unit for Developing, Monitoring and Oversight, His Excellency Dr. Kuntoro Mangkusubroto, Minister for Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Indonesia and Minister from Indonesia and Overseas, the Honorable Governor of Bali, Open Government Partnership Community Civil Organization Lead Chair, Honorable Delegates, CSO representatives, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. May peace be upon us all. Om Swastiastu. It is with the greatest pleasure and honor to welcome everyone to the Nusa Dua 5 of the Bali Nusa Dua Convention Center to the opening ceremony of the Open Government Partnership OGP Asia Pacific Regional Conference. The two-day event draws the theme, Unlocking Innovative Openness, Impetus to Greater Citizen Engagement. Proud to hold the chairmanship of OGP 2013-2014, Indonesia welcomes distinguished ladies and gentlemen to this deliberation on the Paradise Island, the Island of the Gods, Bali. To start this auspicious occasion, speech by the head of the President's Delivery Unit for Development, Monitoring and Oversight, ladies and gentlemen, His Excellency Mr. Kuntoro Mangkusubroto.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat pagi, salam sejahtera buat kita semuanya. Om Swastiastu. May peace be unto us all. Honorable President of the Republic of Indonesia, Bapak Dr. Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning and a very warm welcome to all of you in the land of God's Bali. It is a great pleasure to welcome you this morning to the Open Government Partnership Asia Pacific Regional Conference. It is even more fascinating for me to see this room is packed with a very diverse crowd from 54 countries in the Asia Pacific and other parts of the world. This conference marks Indonesia's first Open Government Partnership event during our lead chairmanship with Mexico, and is also the first OGP event in the Asia Pacific region, with the purposeful theme of unlocking innovative openness, impetus to greater citizen engagement. I would like to welcome you to the marketplace of ideas and innovations that will unlock the cross-sectoral benefits of openness through this regional conference. This regional conference is designed with the utmost desire to excite and inspire a region that is abuzz with promising dynamics, a region that is a major driver of global economic growth, yet barely tapped by another force equally growing, that is openness. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. About 2 years ago, 8 governments and 9 civil society leaders convened to establish an initiative to improve governments around the world. We were worried that with increasing campaign for good governance, transparency and public participation were somewhat outside the equation. We were aware of the various existing and relevant initiatives, but we wanted to create something different. We wanted to start a global movement that will catalyze openness through innovation and public participation. And that was how Open Government Partnership, or OGP, was born. OGP is a global movement where government and civil society work together to ensure that governments are transparent, accountable, and responsive to their citizens. Within only less than 3 years, OGP has grown from just 8 to 64 countries and from a handful to hundreds of civil society organizations participating at the country level. OGP's tremendous growth is significant. As a matter of fact, we just welcomed France as our 64th member just a week ago. And on that note, I hope we are going to welcome more new members from the Asia Pacific after this conference. As the current lead of OGP, Indonesia sees a tremendous opportunity for growth of openness in Asia Pacific. Asia Pacific is the region where good governance is both domestically demanded and increasingly important to build a more inclusive architecture of regional cooperation. Asia Pacific is also projected to be the world's primary sources of global economic growth in the next 2 and 3 decades. The region is burgeoning with population, technology, trade, and resources, where inevitably many emerging markets reside and investors worldwide compete to invest. Yet, with the exponential growth, Asia Pacific is also riddled with poverty, corruption, inequality, public unrest, and increasing violence as well as non-violent political mobilization. The earned economic growth in Asia Pacific is taxed with problems that have consequences in society, politics, and security. These are the consequences that will grip the government's attention to look for solution to the roots of those problems. Examples abound in the region. We see growing demands for public participation in Thailand, India, and Malaysia, where people are mobilizing to have better oversight over elections and their governments. We see an increasing push for social and political accountability in Pakistan, Indonesia, and the Philippines, and even in China. We witness the increasing political will to open up and democratize in Myanmar, where civil society and media are gaining new freedom. And at the same time, we see the increasing trends for e-governments in South Korea, Australia, and New Zealand, where information technology is helping reduce corruptions and improve public services. These phenomena not only show the Asia-Pacific dynamics, but also imply the imperatives of openness in the region. Mr. President, Excellencies, and ladies and gentlemen, openness is the key word and will be the currency for the next 2 days. It is the core value that drives OGP as a new global movement that only started less than 3 years ago, but has grown in an unprecedented way. Openness is what has inspired the delineation of OGP four main values: transparency, accountability, public participation, and technological innovation. And it is what we as reformers from around the world, united in the OGP, believe as the foundation of good governance. Such common belief has continued to fuel the development of OGP as an innovative multilateralism between governments and civil societies. It is an innovative multilateralism in the way that where not only government and CSOs can engage with each other, but also other actors such as philanthropies, private sector, academia, even youth can now collaborate to deliver good governance. This innovative multilateralism has basically become a global movement that delivers concrete results. Here we can see that OGP basically elevates openness to a collective and global pursuit of good governance. OGP also proves that government is not monolithic, but full of eager reformers. It has indeed become the global platform for many reformers that share the same aspiration. The aspiration to achieve transparency and accountability through innovative ways, because we believe that transparency helps fight corruption. Transparency spurs innovation and economic growth. Transparency helps deliver development agenda. And most importantly, transparency improves people's lives. Nevertheless, I understand that embracing transparency can take us out of the comfort zone and isolate us into a lonely journey. But OGP is born to exactly reduce that anxiety. That reforming governments do not have to be a solo undertaking, but a global one. That inviting public participation must not be a daunting task, but an inspiring one. That innovating public services shall not be a costly initiative, but an affordable one. The growth of OGP has indeed been captivating the global community. It is now game-changing the way we do the business of transparency and accountability. From multilateral institutions to local NGOs to global philanthropies to local governments. OGP has been able to unite many reformers around the world in achieving good and open governance. Many now realize that good governance is an inherent part of our world's modern development. Looking forward to the horizon of post-2015, open and good governance is the way, without which development cannot happen. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, as many of you are aware, Bali is not only renowned as a heavenly tourist destination and an idyllic place for living. Over the years, Bali has positioned itself as a historical place where many important international agreements came to the world. This includes the ASEAN Treaty of Amity and Cooperation, also known as the Bali Concord I, the Bali Action Plan of the UNFCCC, the Bali Communique of High-Level Panel of Eminent Persons for Post-2015 Development Agenda, as well as the recent Bali Ministerial Declaration of WTO. This penchant for cooperation is also a value shared by the Balinese, as reflected in the traditional event called Magibong, which means communal feast. During Magibong, people from different backgrounds and all walks of life eat together from one big bowl. They chat, exchange ideas, and get to know each other better. Certainly, I would like to view our gathering in Bali for the next 2 days as one of a big Magibung. It is just a significantly larger scale of the Asia Pacific region, with impact that will resonate globally. All of us come here from different parts of the world to exchange ideas on an equal footing, to share the experiences with an open mind, and to inspire each other with innovations that enhance openness. It is a magibung that goes beyond eating meals and acquainting better, but a magibung that strives to seek solutions that will improve the lives of our people through openness and transparency. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is with great excitement that I look forward to witnessing all of you for the next 2 days, getting inspired from fruitful discussions and groundbreaking innovations to enhance openness. This conference seeks to not only strengthen OGP as a global movement with a strong foothold in Asia Pacific, but also serve as a platform for countries and communities within the region to connect and learn from each other on the benefits across good open governance. We are assembling here charged with this responsibility to return to our countries and share what we will learn from this conference. A conference that seeks to tap new potentials and reinvigorate efforts to support a wider application of openness, good governance, and civic participation. Before I close my welcoming remarks, I would like to emphasize that our gathering here is beyond attending conference. We gather here to strengthen a sweeping historical change that is unstoppable, an exciting change that promises governments can be improved and trusted, a historic change that will bring irreversible belief that openness is the only way to go and that innovative openness is the only way to unlock all potentials to improve people's life. Finally, Mr. President, there will be a 5-minute video that will showcase several examples of the transformative journey some of us has embraced to promote innovative openness in Asia Pacific. With that video, I close my remarks and hope you will be inspired to promote openness in your country. Please enjoy and have a productive conference. I thank you so much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Om Santi 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 Om.
Indonesia holds the rotating chairmanship of OGP for 2013 and 2014. OGP was launched in 2011 to provide an international platform for domestic reformers committed to making their governments more open, accountable, and responsive to citizens. Ladies and gentlemen, here is a video presentation on embarking on a transformative journey, enhancing openness in Asia Pacific.
Openness is the foundation of a modern government. It serves as the key to unlock all potential. The challenges for governments are to be more responsive, effective, innovative, accountable, and inclusive to combat corruption, boost economic growth, and improve people's lives. With this common belief, 8 founding countries launched the Open Government Partnership on September 20th, 2011. In only 2 years, the excitement has already spread to 63 participating countries that joined OGP, and in collaboration with their civil societies, they introduced a wide spectrum of commitments to deliver. Here in Asia Pacific, we have the utmost potential to deliver more and grow tremendously, as is catalyzed by several countries. The government of Indonesia offers reformed bureaucracy, adaptation and enforcement of the Freedom of Information Act, empowered local governments, and the strengthening of public service portals and aspiration channels. In partnership with the civil society and the business sector, the Philippine government is now in the midst of implementing its second country action plan. To improve transparency and deepen citizen engagement, the following programs are being implemented as part of the Philippines' OGP commitments. Grassroots participatory budgeting, citizen participatory audit, the Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative, and improving the ease of doing business. South Korea has launched the Government 3.0 vision.
정부와 국민이 서로를 믿고 신뢰하면서 동반자의 길을 걸어가야만 합니다. 저는 깨끗하고 투명하고 유능한 정부를 반드시 만들어서 국민 여러분의 신뢰를 얻겠습니다.
While Australia works with the community to come up with creative ways to use government data. And the government of New Zealand innovatively works with its community to bring about better public services to their citizens. Indonesia, the current chair of the OGP, together with Mexico as support chair, is pleased to initiate the first Asia-Pacific Regional Openness Platform. Celebrating achievements and cultivating further growth through a theme of unlocking innovative openness, impetus to greater citizen engagement. We have gathered today to expand the OGP foothold in Asia Pacific, excite and inspire each other with new ideas and best-of-fit solutions to improve people's lives through openness. Share your ideas with us. Show us your innovations. Discuss how you can instill greater openness and meet fellow counterparts who can enrich development of your ideas. Share, excite, and inspire for openness.
Please give a round of applause for OGP. The video presented is a glimpse on enhancing openness in the Asia-Pacific region. Today, we are all gathered here to celebrate innovative openness in the spirit of true open government partnership. Ladies and gentlemen, may I now kindly invite OGP Civil Society Organization Lead Chair to deliver his speech. Please welcome Mr. Rakesh Rajani.
President Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono, ministers, civil society colleagues, friends. It is wonderful to be among you, and thank you for this opportunity. At our welcoming dinner in Bali a few days ago, we witnessed a wonderful presentation of the Ramayana story, of the epic battle between good and evil, and intense struggle for power. The narrative is familiar to me because as a young boy growing up in my hometown of Mwanza, Tanzania, my grandmother used to tell me this story on many evenings. The details are etched clearly in my mind still and probably continue to influence, at least in part, how I see the world. In the Ramayana, what is good and what is evil is not ambiguous. But for many of us today, the challenges we face are less clear. The deeper challenge of our time is whether we live in societies that are more open or more closed, about the quality of space for citizens in the regimes in which we live. So what is open? How can we know that a government is open? I think you will agree with me that one of the most critical features of openness is responsiveness. And today I would like to speak with you about 4 features of that responsive government. First, an open government is a listening government. It is genuinely interested in people's thinking. It wants to know its concerns, needs, priorities of the people so that the government can respond. What matters more to people? Is it access to water, or is it the quality of the roads? Or is it the bad treatment they receive at the hands of the medical staff, or the fear they experience from the police? Or is it the freedom to live their lives and make personal choices without the government telling them that you can do this or you cannot do that? A listening government also knows that it doesn't have all the answers, and that some of the best ideas to make life better will come from people. So it actively seeks and sets up practical mechanisms across different branches and levels of government to solicit ideas and suggestions. It listens to experts and it cares about evidence. It is a telling and I think rather unusual testament of the leadership in this country that President Yudhoyono has taken a personal interest, for example, in the work and research methods of the Joint Poverty Action Lab, and helped set up a unit of its own in this country. Or that Pa Kuntoro, who we just listened to, dealt with the enormous, daunting humanitarian challenge in the aftermath of the Aceh crisis by establishing a transparent platform to collect and share information about what is going on, who is doing what where, so as to be able to, in a transparent way, coordinate and let people know what they are entitled to. Or that using social media, using Twitter and Facebook, the president of this country communicates with more than 5 million followers on Twitter and more than 2.5 million on Facebook, and listens to what they have to say. In addition to informed experts, a listening government also asks for ideas from ordinary people and from civil society. Imagine for a moment the power of that. For an old fisherman, or a bus driver, or a cook, or a teacher, who has been used to having government telling him or her what to do, who is in fact a little scared of government, to now experience government as truly interested in what he thinks or the suggestions she has to solve problems. Imagine what it does for the relationship between the state and the people. Indeed, what it does to public trust. Second, an open government informs and educates. It understands that it needs to explain to the public what is going on in the country, what the government is doing, and the basics of its policy and budget choices. When it is thoughtfully explaining the nature of trade-offs, such as why some services can be free and others not, or why hard decisions are being made, and both invites and informs public debate on those choices. It makes policies and data open. It opens data. In the United States, for example, after President Obama came into power, hundreds of thousands of data sets, which were previously closed, have been made open. The United Kingdom is exercising similar leadership in opening up data in partnership with groups like the Omedia Network, My Society, and others. It opens up budgets. The International Budget Partnership tracks the openness of budgets in over 100 countries, which show, for example, that countries like South Africa, despite the many challenges, governance challenges they have, are in fact a leader in budget transparency. An open government also realizes that there is not a straight line between policy and implementation, between the letters of the law and how they are translated by officials, between orders of a president and the reality on the ground. So it is particularly interested in monitoring practice. In India, for instance, Nikhil Dey of the civil society group MKSS and his colleagues have invented a simple practice of painting, literally painting, public budgets on thousands of village walls so that people can know what the plans and budgets are and can follow them up and match them with reality. Using the country's right to information law, through social audits, they involve hundreds of thousands of ordinary people across many different communities to follow up employment registers to see whether the workers listed there are real or ghost, whether the wages paid are real or fabricated, whether the budget execution reports show real progress or whether they show false buildings and services. And by doing so, they put public officials on notice to be accountable to the very people who elected them. Third, an open government engages with citizens. It doesn't just say, give us your ideas and then leave us alone to get on with things, just trust us. Rather, it involves people in the process of government. It co-governs. In relation, for example, to the work of MKSS in India that I just mentioned, the response from government overall has been mixed. There has been a lot of resistance and intimidation, but not everywhere. Some states in India have embraced this approach, as they have in Philippines, like we just heard, and adapted the practice at the heart of government. And these ideas are spreading across the world, with many civil society organizations and governments taking them up. Similarly, the civil society organization, the Concerned Citizens of Abra for Good Governance in the Philippines, is also engaged in monitoring infrastructure projects. From the start, they have involved the government in this process. At the beginning, the engineers, the experts were skeptical because the people who are monitoring were ordinary citizens, and they said, what do they know about monitoring infrastructure? But the group persisted, and now they have convinced the engineers and many people in government, and these practices are now influencing policy changes in the government, and it's particularly in relation to procurement. This practice of involving citizens can also be spread through broader policy-making processes. The idea here is open policy-making. The UK, for instance, had used open policy-making in devising its second open government plan, which is a far better product as a result than their first. And one could use this for general policy-making throughout. In Mexico, the next incoming chair of the Open Government Partnership, which I was fortunate enough to visit in January, I was impressed to see a tripartite partnership between the executive and government, between its autonomous information commission and civil society, working together, each with its own independent views, but collaborating to create a better society. Fourth and finally, an open government is also a government that protects. It protects all people, but in particular, it protects those who are the least among us, those who have little power. And here I have two groups in mind. First, it's groups that are traditionally weaker in society or have had less power, that have been disenfranchised or marginalized. Women make up half of our societies, but they do not enjoy half the power. Children in many of our societies make up more than half of our societies, children and young people, and yet their voices and their opinions are never heard. Schools are full of children, for instance, but no one asks them what they think or how the schools could be run better. Minorities are another group that deserve particular protection. And an open government does not only support and advocate for its majorities, but it particularly takes care to protect its minorities. Minorities who may be ethnic minorities, minorities who may be religious minorities, minorities because they are people with disabilities, and other such groups. And it particularly protects those whose views and whose lifestyles are different from us. We may not necessarily appreciate and like what different people do, but the whole point is that they have a right to be protected. And the second group that comes to mind is an open government protects those who criticize it. The whistleblowers who will point out that there is corruption in government. The people who will say in public that they disagree with the policies of the president. They disagree with the pronouncements of the minister, or they do not agree with the reports that have just been issued, and they believe that it does not tell the truth. A truly open government will be known by the attention it gives and the care it takes to protect dissent and those voices in its own society. Mr. President, friends, in conclusion, I want to say that an open government is a learning government. It takes risks. It tries out different things. It goes out of the box. It imagines new ways of governing. And throughout, it is one that learns and changes, that is better and more effective today than it was yesterday. So every member of the Open Government Partnership, every government indeed, every government leader needs to be able to answer the question, what have you learned? What have I learned? What do you realize you are wrong about? What do you know now that you do not know before, that you did not know yesterday? What will you change and do differently as a result? And throughout, in doing this, remembering the most important metric for why we are all here, which is to ask, what difference is this making in the lives of ordinary people? How to do this is not easy. Changing the culture and practice of government is not easy. There are no blueprints or easy answers. It will take a lot of humility, curiosity, and courage. But with these three things, which are probably the most important qualities of open government, we can move forward. Thank you very much.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, keynote speech by His Excellency the President of the Republic of Indonesia, ended by declaring the opening of the Open Government Partnership OGP Asia Pacific Regional Conference. Ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming His Excellency Dr. Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono.
Turun lagi aja. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Om Swastiastu. May peace be upon us all. Excellencies, Ministers, Mr. Rakesh Rajani, Open Government Partnership CSO Lead Chair, Honorable Governor of Bali, Excellencies, Ambassadors, and representatives of United Nations agencies and international organizations, distinguished delegates and guests, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, I would like also to welcome all of you to Bali, a world-renowned island
rich in culture, tradition, and history. We are pleased to host this Asia Pacific Regional Conference on the Open Government Partnership. The theme of this conference, Unlocking Innovative Openness, Impetus to Greater Civic Engagement, is indeed very timely. In parallel with the economic achievement throughout our region, we see the ever-increased activisms among our people in governance. I therefore commend the Indonesian Organizing Committee, together with the OGP Steering Committee and the OGP Sport Unit, for convening this important conference. You have successfully brought together a diverse group of delegations in this auspicious occasion. I can see among us representatives of governments, regional and international organizations, civil society organizations, academia, youth, private sectors, and the media. This gathering shows the strength and increasing relevance of the Open Government Partnership. Looking back, OGP began as a multilateral initiative of like-minded countries across the globe. As has been said by Dr. Kuntoro, they include Brazil, Indonesia, Mexico, Norway, the Philippines, South Africa, the United Kingdom, and the United States of America, and a number of civil society organizations. After 2 years, the OGP has transformed itself into a global movement. Now there are 64 countries and around 200 civil society organizations joining the OGP. It is with this encouraging development that Indonesia is proud to co-chair the OGP with Mexico this year. As co-chair, we are determined to strengthen this global movement in line with the continuous dynamisms in our region. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I believe we all share the view that openness and transparency are key to an effective government. These are the virtues that the OGP promotes, and these are the virtues that can help government respond to the public needs more promptly and appropriately, such as to deliver more economic benefits, civic rights, and equal opportunities to improve people's life. We also believe that open and transparent government is a source of trust and predictability. They serve as a good basis for a more sustainable cooperation among governments, including to help resolve regional and global problems more coherently. Although an open and transparent government is good, it is still not good enough if the public distance themselves from civic participation. In my view, openness and transparency should stimulate their sense of ownership in open government. That is why Indonesia's chairmanship of the OGP this year gives a particular emphasis on public participation. In that light, let me share some thoughts on ways to promote greater civic engagement in an open and transparent government. First is trust building. Open and transparent government should collaborate with citizens and civil societies based on trust. Such trust would enable them to solve pressing problems together as partners. Second is outreach. In the era of online social network, government need to reach out more frequently and innovatively to citizens. They need to open greater access for people's participation. This includes in the budgetary process and decision making that affects them. Third, facilitation and empowerment. Not all citizens and civil societies have the capacity and opportunity to participate in an open government process. Therefore, we need to empower them so that they can actively engage in the public sphere. This includes empowerment through various administrative, legal, and institutional measures. And fourth is building the culture of participation and engagement. Culture of participation and engagement is essential not only to robust democracy, but also to the very idea of civic engagement in open government. Making participation and engagement as a habit is critical to sustainable openness and transparency. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Indonesia continues to put meaning to the ideals of open government. We try our best to empower rather than instruct, to inspire rather than force, and to embrace rather than exclude. This is the reason why we created the Open Government Indonesia, known as OGI. I must say that the OGI has enhanced our national effort to implement good governance and transparency. It serves as a catalyst for public service delivery reform. And at the same time, it alters public perceptions regarding their rights to information. By way of persuasion and innovation, our OGI programs has helped reform our bureaucracies for the better. I am pleased that some of our initiatives have been referred to as best practices. In this regard, let me share with you 3 initiatives that we have been advancing in the context of the OGI. First, in the field of fiscal and data transparency. Our fiscal transparency program is aimed at providing budgetary information to the people. This allows citizens to exercise greater oversight on budget transparency. I am pleased that our efforts have been recognized by the International Budget Partnership through its Open Budget Index survey. Our Open Budget Index into 2012 score had risen from 51 in 2010 to 62 in 2012, making Indonesia one of the highest in Southeast Asia. And on data transparency, our new invention is One Map Indonesia. This One Map, serving as the national reference, is made possible by the collective effort of various government agencies. You may want to check the map you may want to check the map in its web portal from time to time. The map functions as a single authoritative reference for all different types of government maps, from forest to mining concessions and conservation area. It also makes us appreciate better the value of one reference, one standard, one geoportal, and one database of information. We are also now developing the Indonesia Data Portal, a virtual integrated space for all government data that is freely available and accessible for public use. I believe that this portal would eventually help the Indonesian government deliver better public services, achieve greater economic development, catalyze innovations, and promote good governance and social accountability. This integrated source of information will help accelerate the achievement of our goal for sustainable development. Second, in the field of public services, we have initiated the Open Government Indonesia Public Service Competition in 2012. We invited 34 of our line ministries with their 62 public services to participate in the OGI competition. Through the competition, government institutions are measured based on their level of openness to the public. This competition also allows bureaucracies to innovate and create practical ways for the public to participate in open government process. And third, in the field of citizen voices, we have utilized information technology to expedite two-way traffic of communication between government and citizen. Inspired by the wide use of social media, we have improved and strengthened our program called Lapor, which means to report. Under this program, we are able to narrow time lapses in responding to citizen complaints, aspirations, and inquiries. We have also developed a program known as Solusimu, Solusimi in Indonesian language, which means your solution. This program is aimed at catalyzing innovative ideas and providing a more comprehensive channels for the citizens' input. Under this program, we receive a large amount of submission from our citizens, including through social media. This is one of the means that for the government to reach out to various remote locations across the archipelago. I am pleased to mention that some of the submissions are proven useful in the policy-making process. On my part, as has been said by Mr. Rajani, I have opened myself for direct communications with citizens through traditional media such as PO Box 9949 and SMS 9949. Despite investment in information and communication technology, in the past 8 years, I still receive more than 100,000 letters through the PO Box. I also receive more than 3.5 million text messages. Recently, I joined social media such as Twitter and Facebook for a faster interchange of ideas with netizens. To my surprise, as of today, I have close to 5 million followers to my Twitter, and I have 2.7 million friends to my Facebook, and I also actively engage in YouTube. Some of my followers told me that this number makes me the second most followed political leader in the world. And but I must say, I am very busy day by day, night after night. In fact, based on reports from reliable sources, many among the audience today are actively following my Twitter account. In my experiences joining the world of Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, we must at all times be ready to face criticisms and suggestions, and for sure to welcome support. Once we are able to wisely respond to this input, we will surely feel much closer to our people. I use their input to assess as to whether they are in favor or not of my decision and policies. I can say that my people do not feel left behind in the decision-making process, and Alhamdulillah, this has contributed positively to our effort in maintaining social and political stability in the past 10 years. As we achieve this social and political stability, as well as security, we can thus continue improving our economy to further improve the welfare of the people. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, despite the tremendous growth of OGP, the participations of Asia-Pacific countries in the movement has yet to increase. To date, only 10 Asia-Pacific countries are members of the OGP. We want to see more countries from our region to join this movement so that our voice can be sufficiently represented in the OGP. Asia-Pacific participation is important because OGP's greatest strength lies in its facilitations of the exchanges of ideas, learning, and experiences on open and good governance. Through this shared learning experience, OGP offers opportunities for countries in the region to exchange experiences in the implementations of good governance. I believe our region must play a critical role in promoting OGP. Asia Pacific remains one of the most dynamic regions in the world. I am convinced that it will continue to become an engine of global economic growth. And I am pleased that my confidence was also shared by other APEC leaders when they gathered here in Bali a couple months ago. Together, we declared that the future of Asia Pacific will be prosperous, stable, dynamic, inclusive, and forward-looking. Before I conclude, I would like to once again convey my appreciation to all of you for your participation in this conference. I would also like to thank the government of Mexico for their support and close collaboration during our co-chairmanships of the OGP. With public participation at the central theme of our conference, I do hope that your two-day deliberation will further advance civic engagement in OGP. And I also hope that our conference could attract more interest among civil society organizations in OGP and perhaps in joining this movement. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, while wishing you all successful conference, I do hope you will find time and have plenty of civic engagement here in Bali. I want to be a salesperson now. I encourage you to experience the splendor of Balinese culture and nature. I also encourage you to bring home Balinese souvenirs. Thank you. As you do this, you will engage with diverse local people and contribute to the local economy. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Om Santi 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 Om.
Your Excellencies, honorable delegates, ladies and gentlemen, the Open Government Partnership OGP Asia Pacific Regional Conference is officially opened by His Excellency the President of the Republic of Indonesia. Our heartfelt appreciation to His Excellency for gracing us with his attendance and for officiating this important gathering. Have a fruitful conference, and as the President says, don't forget to shop in Bali. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise. His Excellency the President of the Republic of Indonesia will now leave the Nusa Dua 5 Ballroom. Please give our appreciation to His Excellency the President of the Republic of Indonesia. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now have coffee break at the Jimbaran lobby. But there will be a photo session at the foyer of BNDCC, photo session of heads of delegates and members of the steering committee, and OGP CSO lead chair,
session will feature ministers and representatives from civil society organizations from non-participating OGP countries. The session will then be concluded with short remarks by Minister Francis Mote of the United Kingdom. Without any further ado, allow me to welcome our first set of speakers. Ms. Sunita Kaimal, Ms. Natalia Subagio, Honorable Peter Dunn, Mr. Yun Sungu, Mr. Gan Ocherbriana, and Ms. Malo Mangahas. The floor is yours.
Selamat pagi. Good morning and welcome to the opening plenary of the OGP Asia Pacific Regional Conference. My name is Sunita Kaimal. I'm the Deputy Director of the Revenue Watch Institute and a civil society co-chair. First, I would like to extend my most sincere thanks to the government of Indonesia for their fantastic hospitality in bringing us together over these 2 days. Thank you. In looking at today's agenda, you may have the question, what do a journalist, a parliamentarian, a professor of theory, an anti-corruption activist, and an e-government expert have in common? The answer is simple. They are reformers united by a common goal: to advance transparency and citizen participation using the principles of the Open Government Partnership. But reinventing government is not an easy task. Over the next couple of days, I strongly encourage that we engage in a very open and frank dialogue. The power of OGP lies not only in the success and the ultimate outcomes, but also in the journey along the way. And so I encourage our panelists and delegates around the room to ensure that we not only celebrate those successes, but also take time to reflect on the challenges and how we can do open government better. We recognize that the OGP community extends far beyond these walls, and so this session will be live streamed at events.opengovindonesia.org/live, and we also encourage our audience to tweet using the hashtag OGP Bali. Now on to our speakers. Our first speaker is Natalia Subagio. Natalia is the chair of the Executive Board of Transparency International Indonesia, a board member of Transparency International, and the executive director of the University of Indonesia's Center for the Study of Governance. She moderated the first televised presidential debate and has hosted her own political talk show, Indonesia Baru. In addition to writing for various publications and papers, she is currently the coordinating editor of Asia Views, a monthly magazine distributed throughout Southeast Asia, together with major regional news and business publications. Welcome, Natalia.
Thank you very much, Sunita. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, fellow citizens, it is indeed a rare opportunity for someone like myself to be here to represent Transparency International and also a civil society, an ordinary citizen, able to share my thoughts on the OGP with you all. As you know, the OGP was launched in 2011 to provide an international platform for domestic reformers committed to making their governments more open, accountable, and responsive to citizens, to create clean governments better able to provide quality services. In order to build this platform, it has been agreed that what is needed in the short term is to maintain high-level political leadership and commitment to the OGP within the participating countries, support domestic reformers with technical expertise and inspiration, and foster more engagement in OGP by a diverse group of citizens and civil society organizations. But most importantly, that countries truly walk the talk and are held accountable for making progress towards achieving their OGP commitments. And that is why we are here today in Bali for the next 2 days. Now, the OGP's aspirations are noble. Conceptually, they are very powerful. But the challenge, however, as always, lies in the implementation, so that change is truly felt by our citizens, and the OGP is not confined to just the hallowed halls of the bureaucracy. In the Asia-Pacific region, where many governments have not yet adjusted to the changes in the way we live, where it is no longer about wielding power, but about providing service, where engaging and reaching out, technology and speed, responsiveness and accountability are the realities they have to live with, a massive shift in norms and cultures, changing mindsets of government bureaucracies is required. Government needs to have the courage and the confidence to be open to citizens' participation and to public scrutiny, to keep communication channels open for dialogue and collaboration between governments and civil society. Now, this is not easy, easier said than done. Therefore, governments need to commit resources to the OGP, not just financially, but also intellectually, so that it is able to work together with citizens in coming up with creative solutions. They must provide the space for civic engagement and ensure that legislation is in place and implemented, guaranteeing that the OGP principles they have committed themselves to can be fully implemented. In the Indonesian context, there is clearly high-level political leadership and commitment to the OGP, but that is not enough. According to Indonesia's 2011-2013 progress report by the IRM, we have fulfilled only 5 out of 12 commitments, and the rest of the 7 still remain works in progress. Again, implementation is key, and we need to go really beyond the paper promises that we have made. None of the progress made thus far would have been possible without the active role of civil society organizations and the participation of citizens. We, civil society organizations in Indonesia, have used a wide array of tools, such as stakeholder surveys, citizen report cards, social audits, public expenditure tracking surveys, and the like. And the purpose of these tools are to improve the quality and performance of a given service or project provided by the government, to empower local communities and enhance citizen participation, as they all create a channel for beneficiaries to voice their concerns, provide constructive feedback, and flag abuse. In order that governments keep to their commitments, CSOs must ensure, however, that there is demand for information, and that citizens have the capacity to analyze and use the information to call for change. Access to information is no use if you don't know what the information is for or how to use it. Now, this requires working closely with citizens and communities, listening to their concerns and finding solutions. And because our interests are so diverse, civil society organizations need to be able to work together in creating a coherent and a more powerful voice. We have to be open to collaboration. And when I say open to collaboration, it means that it is no longer the time to be confrontational. We're not talking about being cooptation, we're not talking about being co-opted, but in collaborating constructively for a greater good. But also, it also does not mean that we do not continue to put up the pressure when governments are obstinate. Our interests are diverse. We need to be able to organize ourselves better so that we can create a more coherent voice to better empower and mobilize citizens' interests. Where citizens are engaged in planning, monitoring, and evaluating service delivery and performance of our governments, it raises the bar in the way bureaucracies work and contributes to creating a bureaucratic culture which is more innovative and relevant to the needs of the citizens and to the challenges of the world today. Open government, as I see it, is an opportunity for citizens to ensure that governments exercise the trust and authority we have placed in them in managing our resources for the greater good. We should critically and creatively use this opportunity. OGP should broaden its network, inspire more stakeholders to join, and we also need to deepen and strengthen the networks to encourage peer learning, gather insights from both the best and the bad practices, so that the OGP is not just an aspirational endeavor, but one that creates tangible and positive change in people's lives. And that, to me, is what the OGP is all about. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Natalia. Natalia, you have been a civil society leader in the OGP movement in Indonesia. For our colleagues around the world who are considering how does civil society benefit from engaging in the OGP process?
Well, we have benefited from this process insofar that civil society organizations, in my context anyway, in Indonesia, have been treated more or less like an equal partner. So in this sense, we have been given the opportunity to collaborate more positively in this conversation in creating a more open and transparent government. But it also does not mean that we do not have to persevere and fight. We are not being given this opportunity on a silver platter. The door has been open to us, but once they're inside the room, civil society organizations need to be truly critical and provide positive and constructive feedback, because there are still many, many wrongs to be addressed. And when I talk about government, it's not enough to be just engaging with the executive branch. We also need to be engaging with the judiciary, also with the legislative branch. And that is very, very problematic. But at least this is a step in the right direction. The fight is not yet over. It's far from over. But I believe that civil society organizations all have the intention of supporting the OGP because they see that it does create change in people's lives if implemented properly.
Thank you so much, Natalia. Our next speaker is Honourable Peter Dunn, the Minister of Internal Affairs in New Zealand. Minister Dunn has been an MP since 1984. He was Minister of Revenue and Associate Minister of Health from 2005 to 2013, and also Associate Minister of Conservation between 2011 and 2013. He has been appointed Minister of Internal Affairs, Associate Minister of Health, and Associate Minister of Conservation since January 2014. Minister Dunn has also, I assume in your spare time, written 2 books, A Home is Where the Heart Is, published in 2002, and In the Center of Things, published in 2005. Welcome, Minister Dunn.
Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to be here today to share with you some thoughts from New Zealand on the OGP process. And I do so against our country's background of openness and transparency. According to a number of international measures, we rank particularly highly. We're the first equal of 182 countries in Transparency International's Corruptions Perceptions Index. We're first in the International Budget Partnership's biannual Open Budget Survey, third out of 183 economies on the World Bank's assessment of how governments regulate commerce, fourth out of 77 countries in the Global Open Data Barometer, and first out of 132 countries on the Social Progress Index. Our country's democratic system of government really encourages New Zealanders to participate in decision-making through a range of formal and informal mechanisms, including government discussion papers on public policy proposals upon which submissions are invited, public forums, interest group representations, parliamentary select committee processes, free and informal access to members of parliament in their particular electorates, referenda, gathering feedback on local government proposals, or using online surveys to gather feedback from those who are involved or who receive better public services. Since the early 1980s, we've had in place our Official Information Act, that's our Freedom of Information legislation, which has given New Zealanders from all walks of life, mainly the news media though, the opportunity to gain access to a wide range of official information. That Act operates on the principle that government information should be made available on request unless there is a good reason to withhold it. We also play a strong leadership role in the Pacific, and through our aid program, we try and reflect these same values of transparency, accountability, democratic governance, gender equity, and the rule of law. And our reason for becoming involved in the OGP process is because we see it as an important adjunct to maintaining our reputation as an open, corrupt-free government that seeks to ensure those values are achieved on a multilateral basis. I want to talk this morning about two particular current initiatives that the New Zealand government has underway, which are utterly consistent with the OGP principles and which take the values that I've referred to already a little bit further. The first of these is the Better Public Services Results Program. This is one of four key priorities for the government, the improvement of public services, and it also happens to, of course, to align with the OGP's grand challenge to improve public services. The BPS program is the way in which the government seeks better results from its investment in our public services, including health, education and employment. And our Prime Minister has set 10 results that the government wants the public service to achieve over the next 5 years. These results come within 5 themes: reducing long-term welfare dependency, supporting vulnerable children, boosting skills and employment, reducing crime, and improving citizens' dealings with government. New Zealanders have rapidly increasing expectations for better public services, and they demand improvements in addressing not just the complex long-term issues that affect New Zealanders, but also the way in which they can have access to the government and the services it provides. Now, some of the results of the BPS program will be a little difficult to achieve. The program is designed to stretch the ability of the New Zealand Public Service to increase its productivity, its innovation and its agility in providing New Zealanders with more and better services. To respond to that challenge, New Zealand agencies have to change the way they work. They need to develop new business models, work more closely with others and harness new technologies in order to meet the emerging challenges. So collaboration becomes a key to success. So too does tapping into the expertise and resource outside our public service to achieve those results. The result areas that I referred to were chosen for their importance to New Zealanders, but they're also designed to strengthen public accountability and to signal our commitment to transform performance in areas that matter most to our people. So that New Zealanders can monitor how the program is faring, the government holds the public service to account for reporting progress on the achievement of those goals through a 6-monthly reporting process. And those results are then published widely on the State Services Commission's website, along with particular case studies and videos to accompany the progress reporting so that people can see what is happening, and that is a real commitment to greater transparency. And also means that the public are able to then provide feedback on what they see occurring and whether in fact it's moving in the directions that they want and the changes that they might require. It helps too our chief executives of our public service departments and our ministers to focus their agencies' resources and activities on issues that directly reflect the BPS goals and the way in which they are being delivered to New Zealanders. That program is now in its 2nd year of implementation and is making good progress. And what we're seeing is our public service constantly challenged to find new ways of delivering better services. And those improvements, although it's a wee bit too early to be definitive, are certainly occurring. For instance, our public service is engaged much more with communities that it serves. That includes involving customers in service design. It's more effectively using data to target interventions. It is joining forces to achieve results. And it's shifting funding across traditional boundaries to change the way that services are delivered. One of our targets is reducing crime by 15% by 2017. Recent figures are telling us that the overall crime rate in New Zealand is now at its lowest for 32 years. And we're starting in that space to see the government agencies involved working more closely together, but we're also seeing them engage with the private sector and with civil society organisations to deliver those services in new and innovative ways. Those old silos are breaking down, and those old traditional boundaries of what was public and what was private are breaking down in the interests of greater cooperation. New Zealand will be presenting its action plan to the OGP in July, and as a starting point, we want to build our action plan around the BPS results program. That will help us address 4 of the 5 OGP grand challenges: improving public services, increasing public integrity, more effectively managing public resources, and creating safer communities. And we think that this whole approach also contributes to the OGP principles of greater transparency, accountability, civic participation, technology, and innovation. And we'll be working very closely as we move forward with civil society to build on the successes to date and to address our weaknesses. While we're satisfied with the progress we're making so far, we know we have a long way to go. We certainly embrace the principles and the objectives of the OGP because they're consistent with our own long-term approach of openness and transparency. But we are determined to carry on. The journey will be difficult, and we look forward, therefore, to the wider engagement with OGP partners, working with you, learning from you, sharing our experiences and building not just a better society in New Zealand, but contributing to a better society and future for the peoples of the countries that participate in the OGP as a consequence. Thank you for the opportunity to address you this morning.
Thank you very much, Minister Dunn. Within the OGP, you may be aware that we've created a working group led by the government of Chile and the National Democratic Institute to share experience and also to promote legislative openness. As a parliamentarian with 30 years of experience, what role do you think parliamentarians can play to advance the open government partnership?
Well, I think they can play a considerable role, bearing in mind that you can never properly separate politics from Parliament, but let's try and do so for the purposes of this discussion. I think that the OGP process, in terms of the way in which parliamentarians access official information from government agencies, get responses from ministers to questions that they might raise, both in the Parliament and in its parliamentary select committees, is greatly enhanced by this process. I also think the onus then goes on to those supplying the information to supply it in a way that is factual, accurate, and correct, and doesn't leave large bits unsaid for fear of political embarrassment. As a minister, however, on the other side of the fence, the challenge becomes one of how you make sure that your information is prepared in a way knowing that it's going to be accessed by other legislators or parliamentary committees at some point. So there's a tension there, a good tension in terms of the preparation of material, the tests that you apply in terms of what information is being gathered, what services are being provided, what policies are being implemented. And then on the parliamentary side, knowing the right points of scrutiny and the right points of accountability, and the public being satisfied that this process has actually got some meaning to it and isn't just another reiteration of the political game. So I think there are big gains we can make, and I think that each year, for instance, we have a financial review process after our budget is introduced. And increasingly, that starts to focus on the performance of government agencies and the delivery of services rather than just the political toing and froing that's traditionally dominated that space.
Thank you so much, Minister Dunn. I'm now pleased to welcome Mr. Soon Gu Yoon, Director General of the Ministry of Security and Public Administration in the Republic of Korea. Mr. Yoon has a wealth of experience in Korea's security, development, and foreign affairs departments. He served as minister in the Korean Embassy in the United States and at the Permanent Mission of the Republic of Korea to the United Nations Office and other international organizations in Geneva, Switzerland. He has received 2 commendations from both the minister and president in 2000 and 2008 and holds a master's degree from the University of Pennsylvania. Please welcome Mr. Yoon.
Excellencies and ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor and privilege to speak before this important gatherings. Let me also echo previous speakers in commending the Indonesian government effort to organize this important event. And I'd like to thank the Indonesian government for inviting us at this important gatherings. Due to time constraint, let me offer my conclusion first. Korean government strongly support the open government initiatives, and my government response to the demand for open government is to vigorously pursue a new paradigms for a government operations, which is called Government 3.0. I will share with you the basic idea of Government 3.0 at the later stage. Why did we join the OGP? And what are the driving forces to join the OGP? First, there are worldwide movement for the open government. I believe that we are able to pull our collective wisdom to promote open government through this concerted joint effort. And second, public demand for a government transparency is steadily growing. Since this inauguration last year, President Park Geun-hye administration has been pursuing Government 3.0 as a key national agenda. Third, the number of complex social issues which cannot be resolved solely by the government is on the rise. We cannot find sustainable solutions without productive private and public partnerships. So what benefit can we get by joining the OGP? I believe 3 things are noteworthy. First, the OGP is a platform to exchange ideas and promote cooperation in public service to promote open government. Second, National Action Plan is its faithful implementations will serve as a critical tool to enhance open government. And third, each and every OGP partners are encouraged to boost the private and civil sectors' participation toward this end. We learned that critical feedback from private and civil society would contribute to achieving our shared goal, that is a open government. Let me take these opportunities to present basic idea of a Government 3.0. Korean government is vigorously pursuing to promote government transparencies. Government 3.0 is a new paradigms for government operations. It aims at providing customized services for individual citizens and supporting job creation by opening, sharing public information, as well as resolving the barriers in government. It focuses 3 strategies: transparent and competent, and finally service-oriented government. Especially when it comes to transparent government, we adopted 3 key action plans. By empowering people's right to know through information disclosed, and enhancing the private sector's use of public data, finally and lastly, and strengthening public-private partnerships. And also we are pursuing competent government and service-oriented government as a key goal of this endeavor. we started to announce the list of to be disclosed information by providing the list of information that has a bigger impact on people's lives in advance. And also we disclosed original document before being requested. Now original documents signed by a Director General level and higher, Director Generals and higher were disclosed automatically. And also we disclosed wide range of quality information. Particularly, we provided open data with a big impact on societies. 223 mobile applications were developed each month on average up to now. And also, we pursue the active public participation in the policy-making process. The online policy discussion through e-people website is going on. And we also provide customized public services that meet the need of the people. By doing so, we're trying to make policymakers to be held more accountable, and we try to improve civil service integrities through ethics committees. Actually, senior civil servant, is subject to asset disclose. How to achieve this goal? Korean government created a data sharing portal, open.go.kr. It is a one-stop platform where information from every government agencies at different level is uploaded. Now information from all government websites is gathered and posted on the data sharing portal. So citizens do not have to go through a hassle to visit each individual website. And also it announces the list again of to be disclosed information and a disclosed original document before being requested. And we provide the private sector with internal data of public agencies. By 2013, a total of 5,007 types of public data were disclosed on the public data portal. And a 24-hour public online services website, we call it Minwon24. Minwon24 is an integrated platform for information related to people's daily life. I believe that in order to provide improved public services, two requirements should be in place. The number one is cutting-edge ICT infrastructure, and government-wide innovations are must, I think. So through this process, we learn the unwavering commitment from the highest authority is necessary to pursue an open government, and also a world number one e-government. Korea ranked number one in the United Nations e-government survey in 2010 and 2012 for 2 consecutive terms. So a world number one e-government status is really helpful to achieve our goal. And also a solid legal and institutional foundation should be in place. We managed to successfully enact the Public Information Act, Public Data Act, Electronic Government Act. Fourthly, a governance system for private a public academic partnership is also necessary. We mobilized Open Data Strategy Council and Advisory Group for Government 3.0 successfully. And also, we need to make a public servant, friendly to this effort. Now, it is quite fortunate to see that public servant in Korea, public servant awareness on open government is increasing, steadily increasing. So let me share with you the things done differently. The used car, firstly, used car web portal, ecar.go.kr, and smartphone application provide comprehensive vehicle history report on used cars, including repair history and insurance, etc. So by doing so, we can make a reliable and transparent used car market. This is second examples. The mobile app MediLetter is to provide information about 58,000 hospitals. Mobile app were developed thanks to a hospital information disclosed by the Health Insurance and Review and Assessment Services. Now it also contributed to creating new jobs and also created added values. This is good examples to be shared with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yoon. Your presentation showed a depth and breadth of e-government tools and a very rich e-government platform. But one of the key challenges ahead is to really ensure that citizens are engaging with and utilizing this platform. And how will the government of Korea tackle this challenge?
Well, in order to increase the awareness on e-government, in order to reflect a public opinion in policy making and create atmosphere of discussions within the government, Korean government came up with an idea to promote online policy discussions, actually, for private and public collaboration in September 2013. In addition, in order to raise the public awareness of online policy discussion, the e-government website, epeople.go.kr, I might be wrong, but it's online portal for policy discussion has hosted a special policy discussion on the web in collaboration with a private Korean web portal, Down, on social issues of high public interest, such as food security and something like that. And also, these days, Korean government has used, government and private entities also have used the latest information technologies, such as mobile platforms, to provide a variety of services. To give one good example, climbers can use their smartphones to get climbing information and guidelines for national park in Korea.
Thank you so much, Mr. Yoon. And in the interest of time, I would ask that our remaining speakers kindly limit their remarks to 5 minutes. Again, apologies. I know we could speak for hours on these topics, but I really appreciate your help with the time. I'm now pleased to welcome Mr. Gan Ochir Buyana. He's an advisor of the Prime Minister in the Cabinet Secretariat of the Government of Mongolia. Mr. Buyana is a former professor of theory at the National University of Mongolia's School of Law. He has held positions as the advisor to the first Deputy Prime Minister of Mongolia and Chief Secretary of the Democratic Party. He holds a PhD in law from the University of Mongolia. Welcome, Mr. Buyana.
Thank you. Hello, they're members of the steering groups, they're members of the Open Government Partnership, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very happy to coming over here. So our team is prepared some videos. That's just short video, 2 minutes. Would like to showing you that is in how the Mongolian implementing proposals of the OGP in the Mongolian. So please play.
The Mongolian government is taking significant steps as part of its commitment to the Open Government Partnership. The government is increasing civic engagement, improving public services, and introducing more transparency in public administration. The government's first step was to reopen the State House to the public in August 2012. Since then, the Parliament has established the Standing Committee on Petitions, which facilitates public hearings to resolve citizens' concerns. Today, it is easier than ever for Mongolians to participate in their government. The new 1111 centres enable citizens to interact directly with the government by providing feedback about government activities, asking questions or raising concerns over the phone, through the postal service or in person. 230 government service e-machines are being installed around the country, bringing streamlined services to the people. Using an EID, citizens can receive their proof of residency, pay electricity bills, and receive 6 types of civil registration documents, such as income tax statements. Citizens can also send feedback, complaints, and requests to the government using this machine. The government has increased transparency of its activities through a series of new outreach programs. The Prime Minister regularly provides progress updates to the public on the government's work through the media, such as 30 Minutes with the Prime Minister, e-conferences with local governments to address cross-government issues, Morning New Idea, where ministries can connect directly with the public to discuss new policy ideas, and Responsibility Monitoring Implementation, a forum focused on the progress of implementing government policy. Looking forward, the government will continue on its path towards more open government by working to increase citizens' activity in monitoring accountability of government decisions and maximising their participation in the decision-making process. All Mongolians will share in setting the exciting direction of their country's future.
Thank you, guys. On behalf of the government in Mongolian, in the name of the Prime Minister of Mongolian, Mr. Noro Altanhoik, the government of the Indonesian, therefore cordial welcome on the wonderful organization of the OGP, the Asian Conference. I am truly honored to be here in the beautiful Bali, the joining the leaders and friends, the civil society and private sector, representative from all over the countries. The Mongolian is a country that made peaceful transition to democracy and market-based economy nearly 2 decades ago. Since then, we have built a system with deeply embedded democratic values and market economy rules. Today, Mongolian has come to be recognized worldwide as one of the leading Asian democratic. The government of the Mongolian is pleased to announce that it officially endorses an open government partnership. The Mongolian drafted the first action plan accepting and committing to implement to the OGP principles of the being transparent, open, just, responsible, and ensuring civic engagement. They also Mongolians succeed to establish OGP countries for the government initiatives. The open government action plan will be implemented responsibly with broad participation of the public, of private sector, of society organization, and media representatives. The moderated responded accordingly based on implemented result. The commitment under the open government partnership Mongolian experience and aspiration of the development of more open, transparent governments. We also highlighted endorsement to the open contract global principles. The Mongolian endorsed extractive industry transparency initiative, in 2006 and has become one of the countries of complaint to EITI standards. The government committed in ensure transparency of all the public agreement accordance of open government principles, such as A. Increasing public transparency, B. Improving public services, C. Enhancing justice and reducing corruption. Under their objectives, the Mongolian committed to strengthen its information transparency and information access, right law enforcement, improving transparency budgetary system, increase quality of the public service, and pursue fair, accountable policies. The government of Mongolia will committed to support civic engagement streams through extensive collaboration of the civil society organization when developing draft law, act, and amendment and administration rules. The Mongolian government committed extended current system of the public feedback and will develop integrated network system of the public organization. The Mongolian government also we committed adopt a single standard of the public services at the same time enhance service information accountability. The committee develop infrastructure to provide access of the e-public services to the people regardless of distance of location through the service portal. I'm a pleasure to assure that our country is looking forward, advised in open government partnership initiatives through the successful implementation of above mentioned commitments and also participation in other activities in the context of the open contract partnership, open legislative partnership, which may serve to refine and improve efforts of other on the path towards more open governance, and improving the lives of the Mongolian people. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Buyana. Mongolia is engaged in another multi-stakeholder initiative referred to as the Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative. From your perspective, how has Mongolia leveraged the experience of EITI and used it within the OGP context?
The last time the Mongolian, 2 years ago, the Mongolian was established a new government. It's very close to working for OGP. First and second is, I would like to share my experience in one important thing, which is the world has many countries like the Mongolian now developing, implementing to the proposal of the OGP. This is the most important thing. Last, in my experience is looking, the trust is the most important. People believe the Mongolian government, especially we have to explain about what is the proposal of the Mongolian government OGP. If people support us, everything is no problem. But first and second is the government have the concept. This concept have to understand the people who's working for government. The people have to believe that concept who's working for government. I think I can try to explain very shortly that concept. I think the Mongolian government and Prime Minister Cabinet is talking about it too much. First is our target is people. And when we are making our policy, we have to engage in people. If you engage in people, that policy can live in. If you can engage in people, the trust will become us, first. Second is, we have to implement in that policy. When we are implementing that policy, we need the transparency. That's very difficult. And third is, if we can make it transparency, the bureaucracy is decreasing. The last thing is outcomes. Policy implement outcomes. The outcomes is, if we would like to implement our outcomes, we have to find good reporting. Every day, maybe, every week, monthly, year. If we can report in that, the responsibility is everywhere. This is what we did. But now we are focusing the Mongolian government on 4 things. First is public financing opening. The established government procurement agency has developed an online tendering platform. This year is 29%. Last year was 20%. Tender successfully completed. The 9% was improved first. Second is fiscal policy openness. Local budget management authority citizens our local budget, public expenditures. I think that's maybe 30% of the budget is spent with approval of citizens. Third very important thing is, especially for Mongolian, business regulatory openness. Disclosure of the mining contracts. This is the Mongolian is mining country. Yep. Attempts taken to make the mining companies negotiated progress. Updates open to the public, to the people, to the international. Last thing is institution management openness. This is establishment of economic development ministry. They're working on that. Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Buyana.
Thank you.
Our last speaker is Ms. Malu Mangahas, Executive Director of the Philippine Center for Investigative Journalism. Under her term, PCIJ became active in the initiatives for the Millennium Development Goals, the ratification of the Freedom of Information Act, and reforms in the judiciary. PCIJ also published in-depth reports on election finances of the top presidential candidates. Malu is a veteran of the Philippine journalism, served as a Nyman Fellow at the Harvard University, and has worked for various newspapers and news agencies based in Manila and overseas. She's also worked for radio and television. In 2011, she was named Wiki Pinoy of the Year. In 2013, she was one of 3 Journalist of the Year awardees of the Metro Bank Foundation. Malu was also the country researcher for the Philippines of the Independent Reporting Mechanism of the Open Government Partnership. Welcome, Malu.
Thank you, Sunita. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, friends, magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. That is good morning from the Philippines. I served as the country researcher for the Philippines of the OGP Independent Reporting Mechanism, or IRM. Just for background, the IRM is a tool of the OGP to assess and discern the objective facts about the work by government and civil society from development to implementation of OGP country action plans. The report involves a long and rigorous method of research, public consultation, interview, and analysis with as wide a range of relevant, diverse voices, both those engaged and not fully engaged yet with the OGP process. They are all brought into the conversation. An independent assessment report, the IRM serves as a complement to the participating government self-assessment reports. An international experts panel appointed by the OGP Steering Committee undertakes peer review. At day's end, the IRM report seeks to look at the impact of country action plans vis-a-vis the OGP's grand challenges. In short, translating the big buzzwords into big, real windfall and benefit to citizens and the community. Why open up is the question it seeks to answer through these challenges. So we all know that these grand challenges are improving public services, increasing public integrity, more effectively managing public resources, creating safer communities, and increasing corporate accountability. You would ask next, how open up? There is a long migration path to achieving these grand challenges, but ideally they must conform to OGP's core principles: transparency, citizen participation, accountability, technology, and innovation. In the Philippines, our government has made great strides in promoting transparency through technology innovations, voluntary disclosure of public finance documents, benchmarking transparency and good governance standards for national agencies and local government units, and vigorous encouragement of CSO participation in bottom-up budgeting and citizen participatory audits. But the Philippine case is also a story that repeats in most parts in a number of OGP countries, according to points of attention that are coming up or areas for improvement. To be sure, the IRM reports are stories in progress, as are all our country action plans. If we are to ask, and I come here as a journalist now, what's wrong with the OGP story in our countries? As a journalist, not as an IRM researcher, I believe we might focus on 5 I's as our story peg: implementation, inclusiveness, information, interconnectedness, and institutionalization. Let me go to the 5 points quickly. Implementation is a key challenge. Country action plans could be implemented in a more sustained, coherent, and sustainable manner. The points of contact or responsible parties, individuals and agencies could be more expansive, clear, and involve both the political and the civil service components of government. The targets could be more specific and realistic. The reports on results by government could be more substantive rather than just formative, meaning more than just the numbers or quantitative results, perhaps more qualitative outcomes. Number 2I, inclusiveness is a big ask and a big task that governments cannot shirk from. Country action plans could involve bigger numbers and more diverse communities of stakeholders, including CSOs, private sector, and most importantly, all other branches of government, including the parliament and the judiciary. More than just the executive branch or presidents, prime ministers, ministers, and budget secretaries, entire governments and nations could be folded into the OGP loop. Third, information. Public consultation and public awareness efforts seem to be lacking. This is an ebb and flow process, mostly uneven, even neglected sometimes. That should be the duty of government and civil society. Information about OGP, its goals, its tools, its promises, could be disseminated across wider communities and platforms. And according to the benchmarks for civic engagement of the OGP, this benchmark is very specific. It means also tapping into the vast and efficient powers of all media, print, radio, television, and online, to help spread the word about OGP and country action plans. It means sufficient due notice by governments to all stakeholders of the content and status of implementation of action plans, full and complete documentation, at least online, of all public consultation events. By OGP benchmarks, the views of both the fans and the critics of action plans should earn equal play in these documentation reports. Number 4, institutionalization of OGP, beyond 2015 certainly, but also beyond the terms of office of sitting presidents and prime ministers, and down to the lowest levels of government, where OGP could serve the biggest numbers of the poor and the underprivileged. That remains a big question. The IRM is most careful about insulating the OGP review process from partisan politics. The IRM reports, after all, focus on country action plans and the OGP grand challenges and principles, not just promises and platforms by political administration. The OGP is too good a project. It should benefit all citizens and stakeholders for always and ever, whichever political party is in power. And finally, the point of interconnectedness. Coherence, clarity, and candor are values of a good story, but especially so for the OGP story. To a number of the great CSOs of the Philippines, for example, transparency is a good value, but accountability is a better value. Transparency that's supply-driven or done by governments voluntarily is commendable, but Freedom of Information Act or demand-side rights-based transparency is fantastic. Open data does not exactly translate to open government. They are complementary, but not synonymous concepts. Open data involves data in formats okay for sorting and analysis by citizens on online platforms, but cannot substitute for the passage of an FOI law or for open government. Open data is also about platforms that could be accessible to citizens, but open government is a value that could benefit all citizens beyond online, but more importantly, offline. OGP is a project beyond or above politics, and governments must open up, even when it hurts political parties and politicians. Civil society must claim it, work as diligently, as expertly as civil servants do, and commit over the long haul to achieve the action plan together with their governments. Just as important, I believe civil servants must be looped into the picture as vanguards of open government, the keepers of the gates, so to speak, to the heaven that we all want from OGP. My reflections? As a journalist, it's not yet crystal to me. What is the future of the OGP? What is the story about? What are its past and future links? And why should people care about OGP? And by the time those who enrolled their countries in the OGP roster had quit or stepped down or ended their tenure, the big ask for us is, what happens next to OGP? When do we stop talking about the promises of OGP and start talking about it as a real, concrete, living, breathing thing in our lifetime, if not, at least for our children? At day's end, it is the people who will tell us in their hearts and minds that they really, truly believe that we have achieved open government. That tells us, Excellencies and friends, that we should all be in on this project from start to finish. We must, all of us in government and civil society, write this story of the OGP together. Maraming salamat po sa inyong lahat. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Malu. As you mentioned, you have the very unique experience of being a researcher for the independent reporting mechanism in the Philippines and also having a very deep knowledge of media. From your perspective, how can OGP best engage with the media? And in particular, is there a role for the media in promoting the independent reporting mechanism reports?
I think the problem really is all good plans begin somehow from top, and they are disseminated rather slowly to the bottom and to the ground. The media in the Philippines, and I think the media, I work with the Southeast Asian Press Alliance, that includes my colleagues from Indonesia, the Philippines, Malaysia, and Thailand. I think there's still a lot of public awareness efforts by governments among journalists. The media is a very good platform for accelerating public awareness of the OGP, but perhaps we should bring them in on this conversation.
Great, thank you so much. For the rest of you, I hope that you will have some time to be able to leave this conference room and enjoy one of the many thousands of temples across beautiful Bali. And as you do, you may see some images depicted of what is referred to as the Hindu Trinity. It is Brahma, the creator, Vishnu, the preserver and protector, and Shiva, the destroyer. And I submit to you, as governments who are participating in OGP and considering participation, that we really should find religion. We should translate these principles to our engagement in OGP. What do I mean by that? I mean that we should destroy these old notions and concepts of a strict division between civil society and government and one that is purely oppositional. I mean that we should preserve and protect the space for civic engagement, which will build trust and build confidence in governments. And I believe that we should create new ways of engaging with citizens. We should create innovative approaches to open government. And more than that, we should create a new society where open government is not just an experiment, but it is in fact the new norm. Please join me in thanking our panelists for being the creators, destroyers, and protectors that they are.
Thank you, Sunita and distinguished speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, straight on to our next session. We are pleased to invite to the stage the Right Honorable Francis Moat, Ms. Aruna Roy, His Excellency Rimbing Pato, Ms. Nue Zinwin, His Excellency Ahsan Iqbal, and Mr. Wicaksono Sarosa. The floor is yours.
Well, I don't know whether I still can say good morning or not, but it's already noon now. Good day, everybody. Continuing the discussions that we had in the first session, in the first plenary session, we are now entering the second plenary session also with our distinguished panelists here. And although, as you see that in the first plenary session, we have representatives from OGP member countries. Now we have here voices and perspective from representative from countries that not have been a member of the OGP. But certainly we all are agree that the tenets of open governments, participations, accountable governments, and all those things that we have discussed this morning are something that we should pursue. And of course, they are not easy, as the speakers earlier said, and they are challenges that we need to learn and to study. For the sake of the time, because time is very limited, and I was reminded by the organizer to stop by 12:35, unfortunately. I would like to introduce first all the panelists here, but before I introduce the panelists, I should introduce myself first. My name is Wicaksono Sarosa. I am the Executive Director of the Partnership for Governance Reform, or Kemitraan. On my left is His Excellency Ahsan Iqbal, the Federal Minister for Planning, Development and Reform from Pakistan. And then Ms. Neo Zin Wind, the Chairperson of Myanmar National NGO Network. And on her left is His Excellency Minister Rimbing Pato, Minister for Foreign Affairs, Trade and Immigration, Papua New Guinea. And the very left here, we have Ms. Aruna Roy, a prominent civil society activist, founder of Mazdur Kisan Shakti Sangatan, and also listed as one of the 10 most influential people by Time Magazine 2011. Later on, we will be joined by the Right Honorable Francis Mott, who is currently having a bilateral meeting. He is a Minister for the Cabinet Office and Paymaster General from the United Kingdom. So without further ado, I would like to invite Minister Iqbal to present your statement.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. My dear fellow panelists, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. There is a 5-minute time bar, and I am a politician. So it is a very difficult challenge, but I promise you to finish my talk in 5 minutes, no matter how long it takes. First of all, thank you to the organizers for the kind invitation which was sent to our Prime Minister to attend Open Government Partnership Conference, though he himself wanted to attend, but his other engagements did not permit him, and he asked me to represent Pakistan on his behalf in this very important event. The theme of this year's conference, Unlocking Innovation, Openness, Impetus for Greater Citizen Engagement, is very close to the charter of our government. We live in an age of unprecedented change, an age of information revolution and citizen empowerment. Open government, ladies and gentlemen, is no more a choice. It is the way forward. History has shown that ignorant societies never progress and are never safe. Despite many challenges faced by our country on socio-economic fronts, we are on the trajectory of recovery, reform and development. Pakistan is a country of 180 million people located at a geostrategic center which borders 4 engines of growth in Asia, South Asia, China, Central Asia and Middle East. Our government was recently voted on an economic platform, and our vision of growth hinges on governance capital which cannot be tendered without openness and transparency. One of our major challenges is presence of perception gaps. These gaps exist amongst various social strata on demographic platform as well as between national leadership and masses and among international community due to past political history. The communication gap between the national leaders and masses often leads to poor engagement among different stakeholders in national decision making. Therefore, our government is particularly focused on creating opportunities of engagement and collaboration to create consensus on all national key issues like peace and security and economic planning. And Prime Minister himself chairs conferences of all political leaders, including opposition and stakeholders, and we have created consensus on number of issues of vital national importance. A new development communication initiative has also been launched for greater engagement with citizens on development issues. In Pakistan, recent events have set the stage for the country to move speedily towards open government platform. We had a historic movement for restoration of independent judiciary, and today we have a very strong independent judiciary. The media in Pakistan has assumed great power and to scrutinize public affairs, and there is a growing civil society role in the society which shapes politics and governance to be more open and participatory. Therefore, openness, transparency, accountability are the cardinal principles for our government. In 1 year, Pakistan has improved ranking by 12 positions on Transparency International Corruption Perception Index due to transparency introduced by the present government. In order to gain optimum level of openness, transparency and accountability and a better level of engagement with public, my ministry in particular and our government in general has taken many initiatives in recent past. Our open and big data initiative is part of this strategy. The aim is to leverage our ministry's data richness to ensure input from all possible stakeholders. Based on our open data initiative, we are making more public sector data related to the development portfolio freely available to general public. This represents part of available data which is mostly produced by the government itself, and I look forward to learning from the experiences of other governments in open data. In addition to ensuring seamless access to public data, our big data initiative is targeted at quantification of the feedback provided by general public regarding key policy and development initiatives of the government. The objective of these efforts is to create ownership of the masses, collect nectar from local common wisdom, benefit from international best practices, solicit solution of the problems from the concerned stakeholders, and take the masses on board on all issues. Thus, the information and data is not only shared with masses, rather it is mostly produced by the people. Ladies and gentlemen, it is also very pertinent to announce that a direct manifestation of this new strategic approach for future is our Vision 2025 for the country, which is being developed by my ministry and it is expected to be launched this month. The plan was not developed in the four walls of the government ministries or the secretariats. In national level, 1,000 plus stakeholder consultation was convened, which was presided by the Prime Minister and was attended by the government, opposition, civil society, media, and all economic and political stakeholders. A performance delivery unit is being set up to monitor implementation of Vision 2025 through KPIs. And a network of champions of reforms from citizens is also being formed to act as partners in implementation and also to hold us accountable. So Vision 2025 is based on inclusiveness and harmony at national level, cohesion and integration for common gains at sub-national and regional levels where trade, cultural and people-to-people relations are linchpin of cooperation. Respected audience, Pakistan is a country which is blessed with a huge youth bulge and is also, which is a great asset for our future. The youth in Pakistan is generating intense demand for more openness, free access to information and accountability. Urbanized youth in Pakistan is well aware of the contemporary practices around the world. As we all know, the good governance is a globalized concept, and it can be delivered effectively through openness and better connected government. In this age of information revolution, the expectations of citizens have also gone global, and they expect the best standards of life for them regardless of where they live. Therefore, Government of Pakistan has also embarked upon a journey of openness, transparency and accountability by introducing several initiatives. And just to mention a few, we have asked all the ministries to form advisory committees with members from private sector, civil society and academia to provide government a non-governmental and a broad-based input for policy making. Right to Information Act has been enacted. Transparency International has been engaged to scrutinize all the major public contracts. And I was reading this morning only that the contract of government to provide 100,000 laptops to deserving students on merit in universities has also been scrutinized and declared to be clean and transparent by Transparency International. Appointments to all state enterprises and heads of autonomous corporations have been made strictly on merit through a transparent procedure as a break from the past when we had complaints of cronyism and political appointees. M-governance is a major tool which government is adopting, because in Pakistan we have about 72% penetration rate of mobile phones, and mobile phones allow us an opportunity to reach to those citizens who are not literate or to come on computers or use internet. And government is using citizen feedback models through smartphones, where their transactions of revenue, health department, police are assessed by citizens' own feedback through either SMS or by the chief minister making a robocall to ask the citizen how was the experience at the government office or of government service. Similarly, smartphones are being used to assess and monitor the performance of the government functionaries through GPS coordinates. Recently, government has published a tax directory of all the parliamentarians and the taxpayers to bring greater transparency as part of its efforts to promote tax reforms in the country. All the discretionary powers and quotas have been abolished in the government to bring greater transparency. These are our first steps, but our destination is a complete, open and transparent and responsive government enjoying highest trust of our people. And we are sure, step by step, brick by brick, we will achieve it, inshallah. Once again, I thank the audience for their attention and the organizers for giving me this opportunity to speak to you and also to hear stories of open government from other countries, which offer great opportunity for each one of us to learn from each other's experience. Rather than reinvent the wheel, we borrow each other's best practices and take the journey forward to create open governments in our countries, to make governance more transparent and more trustworthy of our citizens, so that we bring change in their lives. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Minister Iqbal. As it turned out, politicians can be concise. Okay, I will not ask you questions because of the time limitation. So I would like to invite our next speaker, Ms. New.
Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, I'm happy to be here as a CSO delegate from Myanmar. Thank you so much to organizing committee and Indonesian government for giving me a chance to talk in this very important advance. As you all know, Myanmar has been facing a lot of challenges and opportunity during the democratic reform process. From my perspective as a civil society representative and civil society delegate, I would like to highlight 3 main challenges we have been facing in this transitional period. Number 1, fulfillment and protection of fundamental rights, such as freedom of association, freedom of information, and freedom of assembly, and freedom of information. And number 2, improving quality of public services such as education, health, and job creation. Number 3, the relationship between the government and CSO. So based on the past experiences, the government, there was a very little trust between the government and CSO. And there was also lack of mutual understanding, such as the inclusiveness, participation, and also engagement. So we used to work separately, and current government officially made a commitment to give more spaces for CSO in this transition period. However, we haven't seen any significant improvement towards that direction. We haven't seen any common platform where government and CSO are able to work together in this democratic reform process. And we also recognize that we have more spaces for CSO in this transitional period. And CSO has been doing a lot of advocacy and numbers of advocacy process that really link to the reform process, such as the land reform, protection of farmers and workers, and also environmental issue, and freedom of association, freedom of assembly, and freedom of expression. So here I would like to highlight a very significant CSO lead advocacy movement to the association registration law process, that is towards the freedom of association, and which is also I have been deeply involved in that process. CSO advocacy movement in association law reform process, CSO are able to engage with the parliamentarian, including government, to advocate the public consultation, wider public consultation process in this law reform process. Finally, we CSO movement are able to transform the repressive association law with the mandatory requirement for registration to more liberalized association registration law, which require only voluntary registration. So CSO are able to create an excellent coordination with the international community for their support, technical support in international best practices for association, freedom of association. So we would say that is a really significant change and CSO lead advocacy movement in law reform process, and we would say that is also first ever law reform process with the wider public consultation process in country in Myanmar. And this law will be finalized in the Union Parliament in the next session in June. So I would like to conclude my talk with our CSO expectation on OGP. OGP is a very relevant platform, partnership platform for our country in this transitional context. We are expecting that, we are hoping that OGP is able to bring their partnership platform, common platform, where CSO and government are able to build the trust, relationship, and mutual understanding in order to overcome the challenges I mentioned at the beginning of my speech. And also, as you all know, Myanmar is committed, Myanmar government, our government already committed to become an OGP member in 2060. So as a CSO, we are also willing to support Myanmar government to meet eligibility criteria of OGP. And we are also willing to engage for the preparation or action plan together with the government. So the CSO delegation from Myanmar in this room, we already make a commitment to develop action plan after this regional conference and establish CSO OGP initiative working group to promote OGP concept among the CSO in Myanmar, and also to establish coordination mechanism inclusively CSO are able to engage in that process. And at the same time, we are also doing the networking with the CSO in region and CSO at the global level to learn their lesson from their engagement with the government. And then finally, I would like to share our higher expectation on the OGP. Especially, we all say CSO delegation from Myanmar has the highest expectation from the OGP. That is inclusive participation and meaningful engagement of CSO in OGP process in Myanmar. So we are really looking forward that is happened in near future in our country. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Nguyen Jin Wind. It is interesting to see that CSO in Myanmar not only participate but lead in certain ways in this rapid transformations. Oh, Minister Mot already here. Please go up to the stage. And I was informed that you only have a very short time to be here with us. I would like the permissions of Minister Pato and Ms. Roy to give Minister Mot his remark, especially knowing that Minister Mot already has been very active in trying to reach out non-member countries to participate and to join this movement. So we would like to hear your perspective in this regard from this. Please. Sorry, Minister Pato and Ms. Roy.
Well, thank you very much indeed for indulging me in this way. And thank you to my fellow ministers for allowing me to intervene in this way. It's a great pleasure to be here and to be at the first Asia-Pacific Regional Conference in Bali. And what's so fantastic about the Open Government Partnership is the amount of energy and momentum there is behind this. It seems extraordinary that it is only 2.5 years since some of us sat in the same room in New York to launch the Open Government Partnership when there had been 8 members at the outset. Now there are 64, and growing in strength and depth and commitment. And that this unique partnership between governments, and I would go further and say between reformers in government and civil society, forming a common phalanx to drive through the reforms needed, is as strong as it's ever been and growing fast and effectively. The Indonesian government and the British government have been happy companions on this road to greater transparency. Founder members shared the chairmanship up until the London conference, which we hosted in London in October and November, after which Pak Kuntoro assumed the lead chairmanship in the Indonesian government. And Pak Kuntoro has been an absolute joy to work with over this period, and it's enormous thanks to his leadership and his team in the Indonesian government that you've pulled off this terrific event here today. When we launched the partnership 2.5 years ago, I said that Transparency was an idea whose time has come. Asia Pacific is an absolutely central motor of today's global economy and has a key role in entrenching transparency. The Philippines was another founder member of the OGP. Since then, we've welcomed Mongolia, Australia, New Zealand to our ranks. I was delighted to visit Korea last year, learned more about their technology agenda, and will be returning there in a couple of months. I was delighted also 15 months ago to visit Burma, Myanmar, to talk there again with the government and opposition and civil society organizations about the journey, the route to membership of the OGP in 2016, and good to hear of the progress that's being made. This is a difficult road, and we need to give support to our friends and colleagues in Burma, Myanmar on that route, and we will continue to work closely to give you support on that path. We want to see even more. We want to see more members of OGP in Asia Pacific. No secret that we're very keen to see Japan, the sole remaining G7 member yet to commit to OGP. Delighted when Prime Minister Abe was in London last week. I raised this issue with him. We're working very closely, as I know your government in Indonesia is with the government, and delighted that Prime Minister Abe said publicly that they are speeding up their consideration of this issue, so we hope that will move quickly now. There are so many transformative initiatives already going on here. It was exciting that at the London summit, the citizen participatory audit project in the Philippines was a deserved winner of the Bright Spot Award in London last year. And what this does, when we get together and compare notes on transparency, what we learn from each other is enormous, that there's no one size fits all. There's no absolute standard, a final destination. This is a journey for every single government, whatever stage they are on the journey towards greater transparency, whatever their level of economic development or political development. It's a journey, and it's the direction of travel that matters. And it means different things to different countries at different times. And we can come together to support each other and learn from one another, and learn hugely from the involvement of civil society, what works, what doesn't work. And this is a make or break moment. So much has been achieved in these 2.5 years. It's crunch time now, and we have now to focus even more intensively on the concrete action to deliver these ambitious commitments. For us in Europe and in Britain, the driving imperative has been austerity, the need to reduce overwhelmingly large budget deficits. We know that there are 3 particular benefits that we see from openness. First is accountability, improving accountability and building trust. Data belongs to the citizen, not to the state, and people should be able to see what we're spending their money on and how government works. Getting information out of government shouldn't be like pulling teeth. So we've moved from pull to push data out. And the truth is that we find that when you are proactively open about things that are going wrong, that builds trust. The natural default setting of governments is to retain information, to suppress the bad news until it's extracted from us under duress. But that builds distrust. When we're open about what's happening, then it builds trust, and that's hugely important. So that's the first thing. Being openness improves accountability and builds trust. Secondly, it improves public services. Giving people information is a way of giving them more control and better choice. Publishing exam results, for example, lets parents see whether their school is improving, and the responsiveness to the needs of the individual improves the quality. And the third is that openness stimulates growth. open data is the raw material of the 21st century. Just as iron and coal was the fuel for the first industrial revolution, data is the raw material for the next industrial revolution. And so we use open data to incubate in the Open Data Institute new startup companies. And this is enables them to, we encourage them to request new data sets, and already we are seeing huge benefits from it. W.H. Auden once wrote that history marches to the beat of a clear idea, and nothing is clearer than transparency. More accountable government, better public services, stronger economic growth, the benefits are immense. But for all countries in Europe and Asia Pacific and across the world, this is not a soft option. To make the point that was made by Rakesh this morning and Pak Kuntoro, this takes governments out of the comfort zone. Whether you're a minister, a politician, or a civil servant, an official, this is uncomfortable, it's hard-edged, it's rigorous, but it drives progress. And that's what we know, and we need to see this through and deliver it. Not for ourselves, because this will never be easy for us, but for our publics and our citizens, which is why I'm so proud to have been part of the building of this amazing partnership that we celebrate and take forward here today. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Minister Paul. I got this note with very deep apology that we have to shift the time for Minister Pato and Ms. Aruna to the third plenary session today, later today after the lunch, because we have this working lunch already prepared and we have to conclude this session unfortunately by 12:30. I'm really sorry for this disruption, but the first presentation from Pakistan and Myanmar gave us some highlights that there are already movement for open government, both within the civil societies as well as being pressured by the government. And Minister Maut already shared with us his perspective on trying to reaching out other countries to be member of this OGP. Later on in the plenary sessions, I'm sorry, Minister Pato and Ms. Aruna, we will hear the perspective from Papua New Guinea and from India. With that, I will have to close this session with thanks to all the panelists and all of you for the patience. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pa Uwichak Sarosa and distinguished speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, we would like to invite the guests of the VVIP luncheon to proceed to Nusa Dua Hall 3. For other delegates, please proceed to